Hi, I'm Jonathon Roberts, and this is SEO in 2024 Additional Insights.
Jonathan, what's your additional insight for SEO in 2024?
So my insight is that a lot of people are doing a lot of content audits or site audits and everything. So my tip is to look at different ways you can automate this instead of doing it manually.
Okay, so different ways you can automate audits. So what are the key areas that you need to automate?
A lot of stuff. So we do content audits in our agency. So what I've been able to do is to automate a lot of stuff like grabbing meta titles, meta descriptions, or everything like that. I even worked out recently how you can use Google Search Console API to pull it through to Google Sheets. So most of the things I've been doing it in is Google Sheets instead of Excel or anything like that.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question in terms of software. So essentially, it's free to use software that you're using. It's Google Search Console, Google Sheets. Anything else that's key?
No, I think I've used ChatGPT. I've used as well. That's how I've actually created custom code to actually pull through. So there's built-in formulas, of course, into Google Sheets already, but I've found that they can be quite slow. So what I've started looking at is building actual custom Google scripts for Google Sheets, and then you can then pull through the data a lot quicker. I found it's a lot quicker than using the built-in formulas.
So how do you go about building a custom Google script?
So what I've used, and which I'll be talking in my Brighton SEO's talk, will be how you can use ChatGPT to generate it. So you can literally tell it what code you want to generate, and then it'll generate it for you. There's a few little tweaks you've got to make for it now and again, because sometimes it won't make it as a formula. So you've got to tell it to make it as a formula. So then it'll create a custom formula you can use in Google Sheets.
And how reliable is it at getting most formulas right?
I found it's been very cleverly, actually 100% accurate. Now and again, I've had a few sometimes it takes a little while to get it to what you want it actually to do, especially when you're using like APIs to pull through data from like Google Search Console. That took me about a couple of hours to work out how to pull it through correctly. I think it is many things like meta titles, descriptions, it's well easy to do. But if you want to go more advanced, it can take a little while to like tweak it and make sure it works. It's a lot of testing it, putting it into Google Sheets to test if it works or not.
Is it possible to do this if you're not that technical, or do you need to do some kind of education, first of all, personally, before being able to do this?
My speciality is technical SEO anyway, in where I am at the moment. For me, I don't really find it too technical. To be honest with you, ChatGPT does most of the hard work for you, just makes it a lot easier to do it for you instead, yeah.
And have you tried other LLMs to do this, or is ChatGPT the only one that you've tried?
I've only used ChatGPT at the moment. I'm sure that other ones will work as well. I'm 100% sure they probably will do it, even if not even better. I haven't actually tried them out yet, so probably will be trying them out at some point to see if there's any better ones that make it easier and don't have as much back into to get it correct.
Great. And are these Google Sheets that you share directly with the clients, or is this just for your own analysis, and then you actually provide the client with something else to review?
So the code, once I've done the code, that some of the content audits actually do go to the client, for example. So what we do is the code is in the back end. They can't technically see it, but of course it's still there. And then of course with the formulas, I won't leave the formulas to run. Otherwise, when they load up, it'll take a while for it to load all the data. Just paste it in as plain text on Google Sheets, and then it's really easy. It's in there then.
Okay, so what are you looking to audit? Are you looking to determine if, for instance, pages don't have page titles, or if there's too much similarities in various page titles? And what do you do with what you find?
So we look at, of course, if the meta titles and meta descriptions can be improved further. Of course, that's not a ranking factor, but it helps hopefully to get more people to click through to the content. We also look at the top 5 queries that are not mentioned in the content itself. So then we can then look at how we can adapt the content and improve it further. Some content we might say, right, we're going to rewrite it completely. Some content might say, oh, we might just add a few images in. That we found that helps a lot with some content as well.
Love that. Okay, so you take the data from Search Console to establish the queries that are being used for that particular landing page, and then you analyze just the page titles and meta descriptions to determine how optimized they are for the most common keyword phrases.
We'll look at the word count and compare that to competitors, look at schema, looking at how we can improve that. A lot of clients we've seen don't have schema already, so we're looking at implementing that. There's a lot of stuff like that. We look at keywords, what main keyword targeting for that is. Even stuff like when it was last modified, who the author is. So with the author bit, of course, we're looking at EEAT and looking at that to see who is the most authoritative to hopefully boost the rankings of them with the EEAT guidelines from Google.
Okay, so I mean, starting with schema there, is schema, in your opinion, necessary, ideally for every page?
Probably not for every page. Most of the clients we work on are WordPress, so we're using like a plugin like Rank Math to do that. So most of the stuff is automated already. So we do this before we even installed that, just to see what can be improved. Of course, then Rank Math will do most of the legwork for us as it is already, or if there's any, for example, how to. I know it's not a ranking factor and won't help the site, or might help the site a little bit, but we will put like how to schema on blogs that are like how to do something on their blog related to their industry.
Brilliant. Okay, and you mentioned the age of the content there as well. Is there an age of content that you find where ranking starts or traffic starts to drop off?
Not that I've seen. I think we just look at that just to see how regularly it's been updated. So we look at when it was first published, and of course with the article schema already implemented on the site, if it already has it, we can pull through when it was last modified as well. So we can look at if it's been updated regularly or not. If it hasn't, that's when we'll look at updating it better and hopefully to improve it. Of course, we'll look at how it's performing already. If it's performing well already, then we might have a look at tweaking it a tiny bit, but not too much.
Got you. Okay, but in general, if it's not been modified within 6 months, would you say that it's necessary to keep on doing that every few months, or is there a particular time frame that you advise people to stick to?
Not really, to be honest with you. Not really. I don't think we really do that. No, not.
Okay. So it's all to do just with how you're finding the rankings for the target terms in that particular page, and if it's starting to tail off, then that might be something that you look at, but it's not something that you stick to on a regular basis. It's not absolutely key to do.
It's just really just to see the data really and pull it through. Really, just
right. Okay. You mentioned like authorship and authority as well. Can you give us a little bit more detail on how you analyze that and what you do with your findings?
So when we go on a lot of clients, they might have the author as, for example, there might be someone in the more company that might be more authoritative, who's well known in the industry or a bit more well known in the industry, like the owner of the business. We'd then might change that author to them instead of using someone who's not well known, to hopefully, and then build the credibility on that person with like author pages, stuff like that, schema and everything like that.
Okay, brilliant. So, I mean, how much time does this save you to automate all of this instead of doing this on a relatively manual basis?
I know it took at least a day to normally do it, and I'd say it's probably cut down to now to about half a day. So it's quite a big difference in, of course, because a lot of stuff was like using like plugins like, I think it's called Marketing Syrup, the Chrome extension that you can use, and copying the data from that. So now we use the script to run it through, and most of the scripts I've already got them built in, and we use the same created a template, then we've saved that, so then we can just duplicate it for everyone and use it through that instead, which makes it easier.
So how often should you audit your website?
Ooh, we normally do it every 2 to 3 months, something like that. Well, of course, we'll regularly look at, like we use SEMrush at Fly Media, so we look at other ways we can improve it as well. But of course, we're writing regular content to help boost the site as well. So I'd say, 1 to 2, every 3 months, really, we normally audit our website again, and just to check if there's anything can be improved further.
Okay, and are there any alerts that you set up in between audits just to check if there's sudden lack or drop in traffic to certain pages?
So when we do, regularly check analytics and search console. So if there are any drops in anything like that, when we will looking at improving it further, the content. And also, of course, we do regular reports for clients every month. So that's another way we will say like to the client, like, this is how you're doing this month. This next month, we'll be looking at improving it further.
Okay. And when you're doing the automation of your auditing, you talk about the importance of minimizing errors. So, I mean, what errors are you trying to minimize here?
So sometimes the script might not run, or with the meta titles and stuff, it won't. I've never come across an error. It's more like when you're using an API like Google Search Console to pull through like the missing queries in the content. It's a lot more harder to do because it's connected to the API, and you've got to make sure that it's all set up correctly in Google's API console to pull through the data. Otherwise, if it's not authorized, of course, it'll just keep throwing up errors and stuff like that. And also just formatting how it comes through. So originally when I first did it, it worked, but it put all the data, every data in its own cell. And of course, I wanted it in one cell. So it's a lot of juggling around with that stuff like that, really, that makes it, sometimes you need to go back and edit it a bit more the advanced codes that you want, that normally have a few little issues that need to go back to ChatGPT to improve it further.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I certainly really like your way of determining the best referring keywords for a particular page, and further optimizing a page for that and analyzing the title for that. Do you do any split testing to establish what the impact of any changes that you might make to a change might have had on click-through rate or user retention?
Not at the moment, but I think it's something we probably will be looking into to look at. Of course, if we see a drop in the thing, since we've done it, we will put it back to how it was anyway and restore it from how it was originally, and see if it was anything that had been done in the content audit that had dropped it a bit further. But normally we don't really see that many change or drops, really. We see it going further and further and increasing anyway.
But it's generally the page title and the meta description that you start off with and enhancing.
So I do is meta title, meta description, the word count, everything like that. And also we'll look at improving the content further as well, if that makes sense.
Okay, so word count, is there a minimum word count that you're looking for?
Of course, if the content, we look at competitors and seeing what word count they've got to see if the content's very short. Of course, with Google releasing last year helpful content update, we're looking at making sure that the content is useful as well. And if it can be improved, we will improve it.
Okay, so it's analysing what the best performing competitors are doing and how many words they have, and then benchmarking your word counts against theirs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then look, of course, if we look at the content and say, oh, that's not really giving much more information, maybe the competitors might have the same content, but of course we'll add more value to the content, rewriting it or adding a new section to it to help improve its performance and make it more useful for users.
So do you regularly audit competitors' websites as well?
Yeah, now and again. Yeah, when we're doing the content audits, we'll double check and see what competitors are ranking already, and seeing how we can look at improving the client's content further to hopefully boost it and get them up to compete with the bigger competitors.
And how do you select the competitors? Because obviously some massive brands can rank for anything, and they might be ranking lots of other things for different reasons, not necessarily the quality of their on-page SEO.
So what we look at is, of course, sometimes we won't look at bigger competitors. We'll look at the more like competitors that might be a bit lower down page one, who might be a little less authoritative, and then look at how we can improve it with them as well. And also with a lot of competitors, of course, to get the keyword that we're looking for, is we look at the content and see what keyword we think it's relevant to. And then, of course, we look up that, and that's how we find the competitors.
Brilliant. Okay, and you mentioned in terms of other things that you might do in the future to further enhance your processes, you talked about maybe doing a bit of split testing. Is there anything else that you've got your eye on to improve your efficiency, so that you can do instead of half a day compared with a day, maybe 2 hours compared with someone doing it manually?
I'm more testing out, of course. I'm sure you've seen that Screaming Frog have now got a custom JavaScript bit that's in it that you can pull through different data through from that now. So I'm going to start looking at that as my next thing, in case we can do it through Screaming Frog and it's all a lot quicker again. That's one of the things I'm going to have a bit looking at. I have tried a little bit of it, but I think it's making sure the JavaScript's right, because I've been going through using ChatGPT again to generate the code, and it's been a bit like sometimes it's not worked, or of course a lot of the stuff is built because it's such a new thing. There's a lot more. There's only a small amount of templates. And I think now it's getting a bit more used. Now people are more looking at improving templates and stuff. So I'll probably start looking at stuff like that as well. And I know a lot of people probably thinking, oh, why should I automate it and stuff like that? Well, of course, it saves time with them as well. And of course, if people say a bit hesitant on automating stuff, then what you've got to think about is like stuff like SEMrush. When you're using position tracking, that's automated already. That's mostly accurate. So I don't see why some people might be hesitant of it, if you know what I mean. At the end of the day, mightn't they, with automation, and say, oh, of course, we'll review it as well. Of course, you've got to review it as well in case it's completely wrong. Sometimes like the word count is a bit of a faff sometimes, because I'm trying to pull through the content and it will say like it's got 200 words, and look at the content like it's definitely not got 200 words. Sometimes that can be a bit of a pain. It's just working out, looking at like the divs in the content in the back end of the site. That's a bit more complicated, of course, and then seeing what divs the content actually is in, and then editing the coding to make sure that it actually is pulling through the right word count instead of including content from the header or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the challenge is it's inefficient to do everything manually, but it's also not a good idea to automate everything and not check everything. So the sweet spot is in between and what to check.
Yeah, I mean, the sweet spot, yeah. There's definitely a sweet spot in there, yeah. Of course, can't automate everything, of course. Also, I did another script. We do an e-commerce audit for some clients, and we were doing all the actionables for the client to make it easier for them instead of them seeing like the checklist of everything. And we were doing that manually for a while, and I've sped that up now. It's just literally a script that you run, and it scans through all the content and literally pulls the summary. Then we just put on the priorities, and it makes it a lot quicker as well. That's another thing we've used for speeding up with automation.
So you shared what SEO should be doing in 2024. Now let's talk about what SEO shouldn't be doing. So what's something that's seductive in terms of time, but ultimately counterproductive? What's something that SEO shouldn't be doing in 2024?
I'm surprised that I'm actually seeing a lot of competitors still using keyword stuffing in their content. I've seen a lot of people like hiding, cloaking it.
Get 5% of keywords in there. No.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
So there's a specific client that competitor of ourselves that does it. I won't mention any names, but I have seen that they are quite ranking. They've dropped a little bit recently, but they've still got their keywords in white text next to like headings. They've got the heading and then they've wrapped the keyword next to it. I see a lot of that still, which is quite funny. What else? I'm trying to think if there's anything else I've had. We still do alt text. Of course, that's not a ranking factor, but of course it will help with the accessibility of the website, which of course is a major thing with Google now as well, accessibility and making sure that your website is thing. Really think of anything else, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think keyword stuffing's quite a big one still, and I think some people are still getting away with it. I'm not sure how, but
it's incredible. I guess it's to do with the industry and locality and what else Google can rank, and obviously they're perceiving that website for whatever reason is more authoritative and relevant than other sites out there. I mean, in relation to the color of text, it made me laugh because I remember starting off with website design the best part of 20 years ago. I could get away with, now I didn't do something as blatant as having white text and a white background, but what I did do is have white text on HTML, from an HTML perspective, looked like a black background, but then I tiled the background with a white image, so the user couldn't see it, but obviously the code made it look as if it was actually readable text. But I'm not suggesting that. That's obviously something that worked very well for a few years, but
yeah,
I wouldn't do that now.
I was working on a client when I was back at uni. I worked on a specific website, and they wanted help with their SEO. I was back at uni. That was about 3 or 4 years ago now. I was just started COVID actually, and I remember someone saying to me, he said, "Tell you what you need to do. You need to put your keywords in white in the footer." And I was like, "No, you do not want to do that. Thank you very much." And I was absolutely good. And then it was funny. I went on their website. They're not around anymore, which is I wonder why. Hey, So yeah, I actually found that they were doing the exactly keyword stuffing in the footer of the website. Don't think it really worked for them.
It's a different world there. Well, Jonathon Roberts is Senior SEO Executive at Fly High Media, and you can find him over at flyhighmedia.co.uk. Jonathon, thanks so much for adding your additional insight to SEO in 2024.
Thank you very much.
I've been your host, David Bain. You've been listening to an episode of SEO in 2024 Additional Insights, a Majestic series that complements the original SEO in 2024 podcast, video series and book. Find out more at seoin2024.com.